The massive space station hung in the darkness between two bright suns. It was bigger than most cities on Earth. The Galactic Defense Academy was home to the best young fighters from across the galaxy. Each species sent their strongest, their smartest, their most dangerous youth here to learn how to protect their worlds. Hyunwoo Kim walked through the metal halls of the academy. His footsteps echoed off the walls. Around him, creatures from a dozen different worlds moved with purpose. Some had scales that caught the light. Others had 6 arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. A few floated above the ground without touching it. None of them looked at him. Hyunwoo had been at the academy for 3 weeks now. He was the first human ever accepted here. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 2 years ago. Before that, his planet had been alone in space, not knowing that thousands of other worlds existed. He entered the large dining hall. The room was filled with long tables where cadets ate their meals. Each species sat together in groups. The Vorthak sat at tables made of stone. They were tall lizard-like beings with thick skin that could stop bullets. Their young warriors practiced fighting moves even while eating. At another table, the ethereals sat perfectly still. They looked like humans made of living crystal. Their skin was clear and light passed through them like glass. They did not need to speak. Their minds could touch each other's thoughts. The hive mind sat in perfect rows. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and black eyes. When one moved, they all moved the same way. When one ate, they all ate at the same time. They shared one mind among many bodies. Hyunwoo got his food and looked for a place to sit. The other species had made it clear that humans were not welcome at their tables. He found an empty table in the corner and sat alone. As he ate, he could hear whispers from the other tables. The universal translator in his ear changed their alien languages into words he could understand. "Why is the human even here?" asked a young Vorthak. "Earth has no warrior class," replied another. "They have no honor duels, no combat traditions. How can they defend anything?" "I heard their planet is mostly water and soft dirt," said an ethereal. "Their bodies have no natural armor, no claws, no poison, no psychic powers. The devourers will return soon," buzzed a hive mind. "Every species must send their best fighters. But what can humans fight with? Kind words?" The whispers continued, but Hyunwoo kept eating. He had heard these same comments every day since arriving. The other species did not understand why Earth had been allowed to join the Galactic Council. They saw humans as weak and useless. After dinner, all the cadets gathered in the main assembly hall. Commander Veltar stood on the stage. He was the largest Vorthak that Hyunwoo had ever seen. His scales were dark red with scars from many battles. His yellow eyes looked over the crowd of young aliens. "Tomorrow you begin real training," the commander said. His voice was deep and rough. "For 1,000 years our galaxy has been safe. But the watchers at the edge of space have seen dark ships moving in the void. The devourers are returning." A cold silence fell over the hall. Every species knew the stories of the devourers. They were creatures from the space between galaxies. They ate entire worlds, leaving nothing behind but empty rock. Every 1,000 years they came looking for new food. "Each of your species has sent their finest young warriors here," Commander Veltar continued. "The Vorthak bring strength and honor. The ethereals bring mind powers and wisdom. The hive minds bring perfect teamwork and strategy. But there is one among you whose people puzzle me." The commander's eyes found Hyunwoo in the crowd. "Human," he called out. "Stand up." Hyunwoo felt every eye in the hall turn to him. Slowly, he stood. His legs felt weak, but he kept his back straight. "Your species confuses the Galactic Council," Commander Veltar said. "Every other race has clear warrior traditions. The Vorthak test their young in combat from birth. The ethereals train their minds to be weapons. The hive minds are born knowing how to fight as one. But Earth," he paused. "Tell me, human, why does your world raise no warriors?" The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. Hyunwoo could feel hundreds of alien minds waiting for his answer. Some seemed curious. Others seemed ready to laugh at whatever he might say. Hyunwoo thought about his home planet. He thought about the cities where people worked together to build better lives. He thought about the schools where children learned to solve problems with their minds. He thought about the hospitals where doctors worked day and night to save lives. He started, then stopped. How could he explain Earth to these beings who measured worth in combat skills? "We have soldiers," he finally said. His voice was quiet, but the hall was so silent that everyone could hear him. "We have people who fight when they need to, but we don't raise children to be weapons. We raised them to be people. A low rumble of laughter came from the Vorthak section. Several ethereal's crystal bodies flickered with what might have been amusement. The hive minds made a clicking sound that their species used instead of laughing. People. Commander Veltar repeated the word as if it tasted strange. And what use are people against the Devourers? What use is kindness against creatures that eat worlds? Hyunwoo did not have an answer. He had never seen a Devourer. He had never fought in a real battle. He was just a 19-year-old from a small town on Earth who had scored well on some tests. "Sit down, human," the commander said. "Perhaps you will learn something here that your soft world could not teach you." Hyunwoo sat down, his face burning with shame. Around him, the alien cadets whispered and clicked and made other sounds that he knew were about him. After the assembly, Hyunwoo walked back to his small room. The academy gave each cadet their own space. His room had a bed, a desk, and a small window that looked out at the stars. He sat on his bed and looked at a picture of his family that he kept on the desk. His parents had been so proud when he was accepted to the academy. His little sister had cried when he left. They believed in him. But sitting here now, surrounded by beings who were born to fight, Hyunwoo wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. A soft sound came from his door. He looked up to see Nari Park standing there. She was an ethereal, but unlike the others, her crystal body was not clear. It was cloudy white like milk glass. She was one of the few ethereals who could not read minds perfectly. "May I come in?" she asked. Her voice was soft and musical. Hyunwoo nodded. Nari stepped into his room and closed the door behind her. "The others are wrong about you," she said. "Are they?" Hyunwoo asked. "I don't have claws or armor or mind powers. I can't even lift as much weight as the smallest Vorthak." "Strength is not just about muscles," Nari said. "I have been watching you. You eat alone, but you do not look sad. The others mock you, but you do not get angry. You were embarrassed tonight, but you did not run away or hide. What's your point?" Hyunwoo asked. Nari was quiet for a moment. Her cloudy white form seemed to glow softly in the dim light of his room. "My people believe that the mind is everything," she said, "but I cannot read thoughts like they can. So I learned to watch instead. I watch how people move, how they breathe, how they hold themselves. And you, human, you carry yourself like someone who has already survived something terrible." "I've never been in a battle," Hyunwoo said. "Not that kind of survival," Nari replied. "Something else. Something that the others cannot see because they have never had to learn it." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "Tomorrow, the real training begins," she said. "Perhaps then we will all learn what Earth's children are truly made of." After she left, Hyunwoo lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Outside his window, the twin suns set behind the curve of a nearby planet. The stars came out, bright and cold and endless. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were coming. And somehow he was supposed to help stop them. But tonight he was just a human boy very far from home, wondering if he was strong enough for what was coming. The alarm screamed through the academy at dawn. Hyunwoo jumped out of bed and quickly put on his training uniform. It was made of tough gray material that could protect against cuts and burns. All the cadets wore the same uniform, but somehow the other species still looked more dangerous than he did. He ran to the training hall with the others. Commander Veltar stood waiting with several other instructors. Each teacher was from a different species and an expert in their own kind of fighting. "Today you begin combat training," the commander announced. "You will learn to fight with weapons, without weapons, and with your natural abilities. The weak will be sent home. The strong will continue." The first test was simple physical strength. Each cadet had to lift heavy weights, run long distances, and climb tall walls. Hyunwoo tried his best, but the results were clear. The Vorthak lifted 3 times more weight than he could. The hive minds ran twice as fast. Even the ethereals, who looked fragile, could float over walls that he had to climb with great effort. When the scores were announced, Hyunwoo ranked near the bottom in almost everything. "Pathetic," muttered a young Vorthak named Taijun. His scales were bright green and his claws were sharp enough to cut metal. How did this weak thing even get accepted here? The second test was weapons training. Each species used tools that matched their natural abilities. The Vorthak learned to fight with heavy swords and axes. The hive minds practiced with weapons that required perfect timing between multiple fighters. The ethereals used devices that turned their mind powers into deadly energy beams. Hyunwoo was given a simple energy rifle. It was the standard weapon for species without special abilities. He had never held a real weapon before. On Earth, Most people never touched guns except for police and soldiers. The targets were metal shapes that moved quickly through the air. The other cadets hit their targets easily. Hyunwoo missed most of his shots. When he did hit something, the energy beam was weak and barely left a mark. "Your aim is terrible," said Instructor Catherine. She was an ancient ethereal whose crystal body was dark purple with age. "Your power output is low. Your reaction time is slow. Have you ever held a weapon before?" "No, ma'am," Hyunwoo said honestly. "It shows," she replied coldly. The worst part was hand-to-hand combat training. Each cadet had to fight against others in their skill level. But there was no one at Hyunwoo's skill level. Even the weakest alien cadet was much stronger than him. His first opponent was Do-hyun Lee, a young hive mind. Do-hyun's insect-like body was half the size of a human, but his forearms moved with perfect coordination. His black eyes could see attacks coming from any direction. The fight lasted 10 seconds. Do-hyun's four hands grabbed Hyunwoo's arms and legs at the same time. There was nothing the human could do. He hit the ground hard and stayed there until the medical team came to check if he was hurt. "I am sorry," Do-hyun said afterward. His voice buzzed like an insect. "I tried to be gentle, but your body is so fragile. The same thing happened with every opponent. The Vorthak were too strong. The ethereals could predict his moves by reading his thoughts. The hive minds moved too fast and from too many angles at once. After a week of training, Hyunwoo's body was covered in bruises. His scores were the lowest in the Academy's history. Some of the instructors started to whisper that maybe Earth's cadet should be sent home. One evening, Nari found him sitting alone in the medical bay. He was holding an ice pack against his ribs where a Vorthak had accidentally hit him too hard during practice. "You look terrible," she said, sitting down beside him. "I feel terrible," Hyunwoo replied. "Maybe they're right. Maybe humans don't belong here." "The others say your species shows no pride," Nari said. "A Vorthak would have challenged someone to an honor duel by now for the insults you have received. An ethereal would have used mind powers to make the mockers feel shame. A hive mind would have organized a group response." "And what do humans do?" Hyunwoo asked. "You keep coming back," Nari said simply. "Every day you get beaten down. Every day you return the next morning. Do you not feel shame?" Hyunwoo thought about it. "I feel embarrassed," he said. "I don't like losing, but shame for trying my best? No." Nari's cloudy white form seemed to pulse with interest. "Explain this to me. How can you not feel shame at being the weakest?" "Because I'm not trying to be the strongest," Hyunwoo said. "I'm trying to get better than I was yesterday. Yesterday I missed 12 shots out of 15. Today I missed 10 shots out of 15. That's progress. But you are still the worst marksman in the Academy." "So, I'm the best marksman I've ever been." Nari was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "My people would call this madness. To continue when you cannot win." "Maybe," Hyunwoo said. "But on Earth we have a saying. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8 times. It means you keep trying until you can't try anymore." The next week brought survival training. All the cadets were dropped on a harsh moon with limited supplies. They had to find food, water, and shelter while avoiding dangerous predators. The other species used their natural advantages. The Vorthak's tough skin protected them from the sharp rocks and poisonous plants. The ethereals could sense danger with their minds. The hive minds worked together perfectly, with some gathering food while others built shelter. Hyunwoo had no special abilities to help him. But he had something else. He watched everything around him carefully. When he saw the Vorthak eating certain berries, he knew those berries were safe. When he noticed the ethereals avoiding certain areas, he knew those places were dangerous. He also did things that surprised the others. While they focused on finding the best food and the safest shelter, Hyunwoo spent time making tools. He used sharp rocks to cut branches. He wove grass into rope. He made a simple spear from a straight stick and a sharp stone. On the 3rd day, a storm hit the moon. The wind was strong enough to knock down trees. The rain was acidic and could burn skin. Most of the cadets hid in caves or used their powers to protect themselves. Hyunwoo's shelter was just a simple lean-to made from branches and grass. It should have been destroyed by the storm, but he had built it in a spot where the wind was blocked by large rocks. The acidic rain ran off in channels he had dug around his camp. When the storm ended, several instructors came to check on the cadets. They found Hyunwoo not just alive, but comfortable. He had even managed to collect clean rainwater in containers he had made from large leaves. "How did you know to build here?" asked Instructor Bektar, a Vorthak with silver scales. Our weather sensors showed this area would be hit hardest by the storm. I watched the plants, Hyunwoo explained. The ones growing here were different. They were bent in the direction the wind usually blows. And there were no dead leaves on the ground, which meant the rain runs off quickly. You read the environment, Bektar said, sounding impressed despite himself. Most species rely on technology or natural senses for weather prediction. You used observation and logic, Hyunwoo said. Plants don't lie. They grow the way they need to in order to survive. That evening, back at the academy, Do-hyun approached Hyunwoo in the dining hall. May I sit with you? The hive mind asked. Hyunwoo looked up in surprise. No alien cadet had ever asked to sit with him before. Of course, he said. Do-hyun sat down with his tray of food. For a hive mind to eat alone was very strange. They usually did everything together. The others in my group are curious about you, Do-hyun said. We have been discussing what happened during the survival test. What about it? You succeeded where stronger, smarter, more experienced cadets failed. Some Vorthak had to be rescued from the storm. 3 ethereals were injured by the acid rain. Even some of my group mates struggled. I got lucky, Hyunwoo said. No, Do-hyun replied firmly. Luck is random. What you did required observation, planning, and adaptation. These are not skills that can be measured in physical tests. Do-hyun leaned forward. His black insect eyes reflected the lights of the dining hall. There is something else, he continued. We have been monitoring your psychological responses during training. Most species show increasing stress when they fail repeatedly. Their performance gets worse as they become frustrated or depressed. And your stress levels remain constant. You recover from failure faster than any species we have on record. You seem to treat each defeat as information rather than a judgment. Hyunwoo thought about this. I guess that's true. When I lose a fight, I try to figure out what I did wrong so I can do better next time. But you never win the fights? Not yet, Hyunwoo said. But I last a little longer each time. I avoid more attacks. I land more hits. I'm getting better even if I'm not getting good enough. Do-hyun made a clicking sound that meant he was thinking hard. This is very strange, he said finally. Your species appears to be immune to despair. How is this possible? Hyunwoo smiled for the first time since arriving at the academy. Maybe that's our superpower, he said. We're too stubborn to quit. As Do-hyun left that night, he was already sharing what he had learned with the rest of his hive mind group. And they, in their connected way, were beginning to wonder if there was more to humans than anyone had realized. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo returned to his room and looked at the picture of his family. Tomorrow would bring more training, more failures, more bruises. But tonight, for the first time, he felt like 2 months had passed since training began. Hyunwoo had gotten better at many things, but he was still far behind the other cadets. His shooting was more accurate, but still worse than everyone else's. He could last longer in fights, but he still lost everyone. His body was stronger, but nowhere near as strong as the aliens around him. Then came the announcement that made every cadet afraid. Next week, you will face the maze of despair, Commander Veltar told them during assembly. His red scales seemed darker than usual and his yellow eyes were serious. This is the test that separates true warriors from those who only pretend to be strong. A cold silence filled the hall. Every species knew about the maze. It was a test that had broken the minds of cadets who seemed unbreakable. Some who entered never came out the same. The maze is not a physical test, the commander continued. It is a journey into the darkness of your own mind. You will face the worst fears of your species. You will see the failures and horrors that haunt your people's history. Many of you will break. Some of you will quit. A few will emerge stronger. Hyunwoo felt his stomach twist with fear. He had heard stories about the maze from older cadets. They said it was different for each species, but always terrible. For the Vorthak, the maze showed them dying without honor, their names forgotten and their families ashamed. For the ethereals, it showed their minds being destroyed, leaving them trapped in bodies that could not think. For the hive minds, it showed them cut off from their group, alone and unable to connect with anyone. But what would it show a human? Earth was new to the galaxy. The other species didn't even understand human fears yet. That night, Nari came to his room again. She looked more solid than usual, her cloudy white form almost opaque with worry. Are you afraid? She asked. Yes, Hyunwoo said honestly. Everyone is afraid of the maze. Not everyone survives it unchanged, Nari said quietly. My own brother entered the maze 3 years ago. He came out, but he was different. Broken. He left the academy the next day and never spoke of what he saw. What do you think it will show me? Nari was quiet for a long time. I do not know. Your species is a mystery to us. We cannot read your minds easily. We do not understand your fears, but... She paused.
I have been studying Earth's history since you arrived.
Your people have seen terrible things. Wars that killed millions. Diseases that destroyed entire cities. Times when your planet almost died. And we survived all of it, Hyunwoo said. Yes, but at what cost? The maze does not just show you fear. It shows you truth. The dark truths that your species tries to forget. The week passed too quickly. Other cadets spent their time preparing in different ways. The Vorthak practiced meditation exercises to strengthen their honor. The ethereals shared mental energy to protect their minds. The hive minds connected even more deeply, so that if one was broken, the others could carry them. Hyunwoo didn't know how to prepare. Humans had no special mental techniques. They had no shared consciousness to fall back on. All he could do was try to stay calm and remember who he was. On the day of the test, the cadets gathered outside a large metal door that led to the maze chamber. One by one, they were called inside. Some came out quickly, shaking and pale. Others took longer. A few had to be carried out by medical teams. Taejun, the green-scaled Vorthak, came out looking angry and ashamed. Do-hyun and his group emerged together, supporting one of their members who seemed lost and confused. Nari was inside for 2 hours. When she finally came out, her crystal form was dim and cracked in places. Finally, it was Hyunwoo's turn. Human, Commander Veltar called. Enter the maze. Hyunwoo walked through the metal door. It sealed behind him with a sound like a tomb closing. The room inside was completely dark. Then slowly, lights began to appear. But they were not normal lights. They seemed to come from inside his own mind. The darkness around him began to change. He was no longer in a room at the academy. He was standing on a familiar street in his hometown on Earth, but something was wrong. The sky was too dark. The air smelled of smoke and fear. In the distance, he could hear explosions and screaming. The scene changed. He was in a classroom, but not as a student. He was a soldier holding a rifle. The children in the classroom were hiding under their desks, crying. Outside, the sounds of war grew louder. This is what your species does, said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. You make war on each other. You kill your own kind for land, for resources, for ideas. You are the only species in the galaxy that murders its own children. The scene changed again. Now he was standing in a place where the ground was burned and nothing could grow. The air was poison. The water was poison. Everything was dead. You destroyed your own planet, the voice continued. Other species explore space to find new homes. Humans explore space because they ruined their first home. You are not explorers. You are refugees from your own stupidity. More scenes flashed around him. Wars throughout human history. Genocide, slavery, torture, disease that was allowed to spread because people were too afraid or too selfish to help each other. Look at what you are, the voice said. Look at what your species has done. How can you stand here and pretend to be a defender of the galaxy? You cannot even defend your own people from yourselves. Each image hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. He saw humans hurting other humans in ways that made him sick. He saw his own people failing again and again to be the good beings they claimed to be. But as the images continued, something strange happened. Instead of breaking down, instead of running away or denying what he saw, Hyunwoo kept watching. Yes, he said out loud. We did all of these things. The voice seemed surprised. The images slowed. We started wars, Hyunwoo continued. We polluted our planet. We were cruel to each other. We made terrible mistakes. Then how can you claim to be worthy? The voice demanded. Because we also did other things, Hyunwoo said. The scene around him began to change again, but this time it was different. He was still seeing human history, but now he saw other moments. He saw people running into burning buildings to save strangers. He saw doctors working for days without sleep to help patients they had never met. He saw ordinary people giving their food to hungry children, even when they were hungry themselves. He saw humans who had lost everything still trying to help others. He saw people who had been hurt badly still choosing to be kind. He saw his species making the same mistakes over and over again, but also learning slowly to be better. We are not perfect, Hyunwoo said to the voice. We never claimed to be, but we keep trying to do better. Even when we fail, even when we fall down, we get back up and try again. Your failures are unforgivable, the voice insisted. Maybe, Hyunwoo agreed, but they are not the end of our story. Every time we failed, some of us learned something. Every time we were cruel, some of us chose to be kind instead. Every time we gave up, someone else refused to quit. The images around him were changing faster now. He saw humans exploring space not to run away from their problems, but to find new ways to solve them. He saw them reaching out to alien species with curiosity instead of fear. He saw them trying to learn how to be better neighbors in a galaxy full of different kinds of life. We are not the strongest species, Hyunwoo said. We are not the smartest or the most advanced. But we are the species that looks at our own worst moments and says, we can do better than this. We are the species that refuses to give up on the idea that tomorrow can be better than today. The voice was quiet for a long time. The images around him began to fade. You accept your darkness, the voice said finally. You do not deny it or hide from it. How can we fight our demons if we pretend they don't exist? Hyunwoo asked. How can we get better if we don't admit we were wrong? Other species enter this place and are destroyed by their shame, the voice said. You feel shame too, but you are not destroyed by it. Why? Hyunwoo thought about it. Because shame is just information, he said. It tells me that I did something wrong or that my people did something wrong. It doesn't tell me that we can never do anything right. The darkness began to lift. Hyunwoo could see the metal walls of the test chamber again. You are the first being to leave the maze unchanged, the voice said as it faded away. Not because you were unaffected, but because you were already carrying your darkness with you, and you had already learned to walk with it instead of being crushed by it. The door opened. Hyunwoo walked out into the bright lights of the academy hallway. Commander Veltar was waiting for him, along with several other instructors. They all looked shocked. How long was I inside? Hyunwoo asked. 47 minutes, the commander replied. Most cadets take 2 to 4 hours. Some take much longer. And his vital signs never spiked, added Instructor Catherine. Her purple crystal form was pulsing with confusion. No increased heart rate. No stress hormones. No psychological break patterns. How is this possible? Commander Veltar studied Hyunwoo with his yellow eyes. What did you see in there, human? The worst things my species has ever done, Hyunwoo said simply. And the best things too, just truth. And you were not broken by this truth? No, sir. We live with that truth every day on Earth. We learn it in school. We talk about it with our families. We dream maybe he belonged here. After the maze of despair, things changed for Hyunwoo at the academy. The other cadets no longer avoided him completely. Some even nodded when they passed him in the halls. Do-hyun had started eating lunch with him regularly, asking questions about human psychology and behavior. Nari visited his room often to discuss philosophy and the nature of courage, but the biggest change came in advanced tactical training. Today, you face the Kobayashi scenario, announced Colonel Rathkon, the head of tactical studies. She was an ancient ethereal whose crystal body was so old it had turned black with age. This is the final test before graduation. It is designed to be unwinnable. You will command a small fleet against overwhelming enemy forces. The goal is not to win, but to show how you face impossible odds. The cadets were divided into groups based on their species. Each group would take turns commanding the simulated fleet while the others watched and learned. The scenario was always the same. A handful of ships against a massive devourer invasion force that was attacking a defenseless colony world. The Vorthak went first. Taijun commanded their group with fierce pride. Their strategy was direct and honorable. Meet the enemy head-on in glorious battle. They fought bravely, destroying many enemy ships before being overwhelmed. When their fleet was destroyed, they had saved about 30% of the colony's population. Acceptable, Colonel Rathkon said. You died with honor and saved as many as your strength allowed. The ethereals took a different approach. Using their mental powers, they coordinated perfect defensive formations and energy-efficient attacks. Their strategy was elegant and intelligent, making every shot count. They lasted longer than the Vorthak and saved about 40% of the colony. Well done, the colonel said. Superior tactics and coordination. A logical approach to an illogical situation. The hive minds were even more impressive. Their perfect unity allowed them to coordinate complex maneuvers that would be impossible for other species. Multiple ships moved as one mind, creating strategies that confused and delayed the enemy. They saved 55% of the colony before their fleet was destroyed. Outstanding, Colonel Rathcon declared. The best performance we have seen this year. Then it was Hyun-woo's turn. He sat in the command chair of the simulated flagship, looking at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was 10 times larger than his own. The colony below had 12 million civilians with no way to escape. According to every simulation model, this battle could not be won. Begin simulation, the colonel announced. The Devourer ships appeared on the screen like a swarm of black insects. They moved toward the colony world with terrible purpose. Hyun-woo studied the display for a long moment. Then he did something none of the other commanders had tried. He opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. Devourer Command, this is the human commander of the defense fleet. I want to talk. Shocked murmurs came from the watching cadets. No one had ever tried to communicate with the Devourers in the simulation. They were programmed to be mindless eating machines. But the simulation AI responded. A horrible voice filled the command bridge. Human flesh thing. You delay your death, we hunger, we consume, surrender and die quickly. I'm not here to surrender, Hyun-woo said calmly. I'm here to make a deal. Devourers do not bargain. Everyone bargains when they have something to gain, Hyun-woo replied. You're here to feed. I understand that. But this colony has 12 million people. That's not much food for a fleet your size. My ships won't put up much of a fight either. You'll consume everything here in a day, maybe 2. Then you'll have to find another world. The watching cadets looked confused. It sounded like Hyun-woo was helping the enemy plan their attack. What is your point, flesh thing? 3 systems from here is the Vorthak homeworld. 60 billion people, all warriors, all healthy and strong. Much better food than these soft colonists. But the Vorthak homeworld has massive defenses. You'd lose half your fleet taking it. We know of the warrior world, we will consume it later. But what if you could take it now with no losses? Hyun-woo asked. What if I gave you information about their defense grids? Told you exactly when and where to attack? Colonel Rathcon stood up from her observation chair. Cadet Kim, what are you doing? Hyun-woo ignored her. He was focused on the tactical display, making calculations in his head. In exchange for what? The Devourer voice asked. Safe passage for my fleet and 12 hours to evacuate the colony. You get a much bigger meal and I save some lives. Everyone wins. You would betray the warrior species to save these weak colonists? I would make a practical choice in an impossible situation. There was silence for a moment. Then, acceptable. Transmit the defense codes. Hyun-woo's fingers flew over the controls. He uploaded false information that looked real, but would actually lead the Devourers into a trap. At the same time, he began the evacuation of the colony, but he wasn't finished. As the Devourer fleet turned to leave for the Vorthak homeworld, Hyun-woo activated a hidden program in the simulation. It was a communications virus he had coded during his free time, designed to spread through the Devourer command network. The virus didn't carry weapons or explosives. Instead, it carried a simple message, the location of the Devourer's home base, which Hyun-woo had calculated from their fleet movements and attack patterns. By the time the Devourers reached the fake coordinates and realized they had been tricked, every ship in the galaxy would know where to find their breeding grounds. Simulation complete, the computer announced. Colony evacuation, 97% successful. Enemy fleet deceived and tracked. Estimated long-term strategic advantage, decisive. The training room was completely silent. Colonel Rathcon stared at the tactical display. Cadet Kim, she said slowly, you achieved the impossible. You saved nearly all the colonists and gained crucial intelligence that could end the Devourer threat forever. But he cheated, Taejun protested, his green scales bright with anger. He betrayed allies. He lied to the enemy. He used trickery instead of fighting with honor. I used what worked, Hyun-woo said simply. You were willing to sacrifice the Vorthak homeworld, Nari pointed out, though she sounded more curious than accusing. No, I wasn't, Hyun-woo replied. The defense codes I gave them were fake. They would have led the Devourers straight into the strongest part of the Vorthak defense grid. It would have been a massacre of the Devourers. Do-hyun's forearms clicked together in the gesture his people used when they were thinking hard. You planned to deceive them from the beginning. I planned to save as many lives as possible using whatever methods worked, Hyun-woo corrected. The Devourers expected me to fight them directly because that's what every species does. They didn't expect negotiation because they'd never encountered it before. Their own nature became a weakness I could exploit. Colonel Rathcon's black crystal form was pulsing with something that might have been amazement. In 300 years of running this simulation, no cadet has ever attempted to communicate with the enemy. No one has ever considered that an unwinnable fight might be won by not fighting. But what about honor? Taejun demanded. What about glory? What about proving your strength? What about them? Hyunwoo asked. 12 million people are alive who would have been dead. The Devourer threat has been neutralized. The galaxy is safer. Isn't that more important than how we feel about ourselves? But you lied, Nari said. You deceived the enemy. Yes, I did. Does this not trouble you? Hyunwoo thought about it. I lied to creatures that eat entire civilizations. I deceived monsters that wanted to commit genocide. No, that doesn't trouble me at all. Commander Veltar had been watching the entire exchange in silence. Now he stepped forward. Human, he said, his voice deep and serious. You have done something unprecedented. But answer me this. If the situation had been real, if you had been forced to actually sacrifice an allied world to save the colonists, would you have done it? The room went completely quiet. Every cadet, every instructor waited for Hyunwoo's answer. If it was the only way to save more lives overall, Hyunwoo said slowly. If I had tried everything else and there was no other choice. If the alternative was letting everyone die, he paused, looking around the room at all the alien faces watching him. I would have done whatever saved the most people, and then I would have spent the rest of my life trying to find a way to live with that choice. Commander Veltar nodded slowly. That, cadets, is what command truly means. Not the glory of victory or the honor of defeat. The willingness to make impossible choices and carry the weight of their consequences. As the cadets filed out of the training room, Jo Hyun approached Hyunwoo. Your species continues to confuse us, the hive mind said. You fight without honor, win without glory, and lead without pride. By our standards, you should be weak, and yet? Hyunwoo asked. And yet you achieved what none of us could. You found a way to win an unwinnable scenario. Do-hyun paused. Perhaps we have been measuring strength incorrectly. That night, as Hyunwoo lay in his bed looking out at the stars, he thought about home. On Earth, people told stories about heroes who always did the right thing and never had to compromise their values. But real life was messier than stories. Real life required choices that had no good answers. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, 97% of 12 million people were alive because graduation day arrived with unexpected news. As the cadets prepared for their final ceremony, alarms began sounding throughout the academy. Emergency broadcasts filled every screen and communication device. Attention all personnel, came the voice of Admiral Zekthar, the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force. Our deep space monitors have detected Devourer scout ships at the edge of the galaxy. This is not a drill. The 1,000-year cycle has ended early. The Devourers are returning. The graduation ceremony continued, but everything felt different now. The cadets who had spent months training for a theoretical future war now faced the reality that they might be fighting for their lives within days. The Great Assembly Hall was packed with beings from across the galaxy. Each species had sent representatives to see their young warriors graduate. The families of cadets filled the viewing areas, their faces showing pride mixed with worry. Hyunwoo sat with the other graduating cadets in the front rows. His own family was not there. Earth was too far away for them to travel to the academy. But Nari had saved him a seat next to her, and Do-hyun had positioned his group nearby. After months of being alone, he finally had friends. Commander Veltar took the stage, his red scales gleaming under the bright lights. Behind him, holographic displays showed the approaching Devourer fleet. It was larger than anyone had expected. Today you become warriors in the Galactic Defense Force, the commander began. But today is different from every graduation before it. You will not have years to continue your training in peace. The enemy is already coming. He gestured to the display behind him. Each of your species has contributed their best young fighters to this cause. The Vorthak brings strength and honor. The Ethereals bring wisdom and mental power. The hive minds bring unity and perfect coordination. The commander's yellow eyes swept across the graduates. These gifts have protected our galaxy for thousands of years. But now we face our greatest test. The Devourer fleet is 3 times larger than any we have faced before. Our traditional methods may not be enough. Murmurs spread through the crowd. If their combined military might was not enough, what hope did they have? There is one among you whose people are still a mystery to us, Commander Veltar continued. His gaze found Hyunwoo in the crowd. When humans first joined our council, many questioned their worth. Earth has no warrior traditions, no combat castes, no ceremonial duels or honor codes. The murmurs grew louder. Some sounded doubtful, others curious. Stand up, Cadet Kim, the commander ordered. Hyunwoo stood, feeling thousands of alien eyes focus on him. In the viewing areas, he could see representatives from dozens of species watching with interest. When you first arrived at this academy, I asked you a question, Commander Veltar said. Why does Earth raise no warriors? You did not have a good answer then. Do you have one now? The hall fell silent. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. After months of watching the human cadet struggle and adapt and somehow succeed, they wanted to understand what he represented. Hyunwoo looked around the vast room. He saw Taejun, the proud Vorthak who had mocked him on his first day. He saw the ethereal instructors who had questioned his worth. He saw the hive mind groups who had studied his psychological patterns, all of them waiting for his answer. You're right, Commander, Hyunwoo said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's audio system. Earth doesn't raise warriors. Disappointed sounds came from some parts of the crowd. Had the human learned nothing? We don't need to, Hyunwoo continued. The hall went quiet again. Every other species here creates warriors because they have to. The Vorthak teach their children to fight because their homeworld is harsh and only the strong survive. The ethereals develop mental weapons because their minds are their greatest asset. The hive minds coordinate perfectly because individual weakness means death for the entire group. He paused, looking directly at Commander Veltar. But humans? Hyunwoo shook his head. We don't create warriors. We just are warriors, all of us, every single one. Explain, the commander demanded. On Earth we have a saying, Hyunwoo said. Hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. Weak people create hard times. Our entire history has been a cycle of this pattern. He gestured to the holographic display showing the approaching devourers. We've faced extinction more times than any species in this room. Ice ages that should have killed us. Diseases that wiped out entire civilizations. Wars that turned whole continents into wastelands. Natural disasters that destroyed everything we built. The crowd was listening intently now, and each time we survived. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. We survived because when everything went wrong, when all hope seemed lost, when everyone else had given up. Hyunwoo's voice grew stronger. Someone refused to quit. Nari's crystal form was glowing brighter as she listened. Do-hyun and his group had gone completely still. You want to know what humans contribute to this war? Hyunwoo asked. We're the species that looks at impossible odds and says, how do we make this work anyway? We're the ones who will find a way to keep fighting when everyone else has accepted defeat. But you have no special abilities, protested Elder Morgak, an ancient Vorthak in the viewing area. No natural weapons, no psychic powers, no enhanced coordination. You're right, Hyunwoo agreed. We don't have any of those things. What we have is something else. He looked around the room again, meeting as many eyes as he could. We have the ability to look at any situation, no matter how hopeless, and find something that everyone else missed. We adapt, we improvise. We refuse to accept that any problem is unsolvable. And when you fail? Asked Instructor Catherine from her position with the other teachers. We learn from the failure and try again, Hyunwoo said simply. And again. And again. For as long as it takes. Commander Veltar stepped closer to the podium. You speak of persistence. Other species have this quality as well. Do they? Hyunwoo challenged. When the maze of despair showed me humanity's worst moments, I wasn't broken by them because I already knew about them. We teach our children about our failures so they won't repeat them. We remember our mistakes so we can do better. He pointed to the display showing the Devourer fleet. Every other species in this room has traditions that tell them how to face this threat. Honor codes that demand you fight in certain ways. Mental disciplines that focus your power in specific directions. Cultural unity that coordinates your actions according to established patterns. And humans? Do-hyun asked from the audience. We have no traditions holding us back, Hyunwoo said. No honor codes limiting our options. No established patterns that the enemy can predict. When you've spent your entire evolutionary history surviving things that should have killed you, you learn that the only rule is, whatever works. The hall erupted in discussion. Some beings sounded excited. Others sounded worried. A few sounded offended. Admiral Zekthar himself stepped forward. The ancient ethereal's crystal body was pure white with age, and his voice carried the authority of centuries. "You propose to fight without honor?" he asked. "To abandon the codes that have guided galactic warfare for millennia?" "I propose to fight to win," Hyunwoo replied. "The Devourers don't follow your codes of honor. They don't respect your traditions. They just want to eat everything you've ever loved. Against an enemy like that, the only honor is in making sure they fail. And if that means using methods that other species consider dishonorable," the Admiral pressed. Hyunwoo thought about the simulation where he had lied to the enemy to save lives. He thought about all the times in human history when people had been forced to choose between being good and being effective. "Then we'll carry the weight of those choices," he said. "We'll do what needs to be done, and we'll spend the rest of our lives figuring out how to live with it. But the alternative, letting the Devourers win because we were too proud to fight dirty, that's not honor. That's just suicide with extra steps." The discussion in the hall grew louder. Hyunwoo could hear arguments breaking out between different species. Commander Veltar raised his hand for silence. "The human speaks of fighting without limits," he said, "of abandoning the traditions that define us. Some will say this is wisdom. Others will call it barbarism. But there is one question that matters more than philosophy." The commander looked directly at Hyunwoo. "Can you win?" "I don't know," Hyunwoo answered honestly. "Maybe we'll all die anyway. Maybe the Devourers are too strong and too many and too alien for any strategy to work. Maybe this time the universe finally presents us with a problem that has no solution." He straightened his shoulders. "But if there is a way to win, any way, no matter how crazy or desperate or morally questionable, we'll find it. And if there isn't a way to win, we'll find a way to make sure something survives. Because that's what humans do. We look at the end of the world and we say, not today." The hall fell completely silent. Then, slowly, Nari began to stand. Her crystal form was brighter than anyone had ever seen it. "I volunteer to serve under human command," she announced. Do-hyun and his entire group rose as one. "As do we." More beings began to stand. First,